the shadows of the world. And those shadows, I would say, are forces which we can call many names: anti-light, anti-evolution. They're ultra conservative that want to keep the world the way it is, the way the things are. They don't like to change it. They don't like a higher vibration. Those forces are reacting because those forces have become aware, particularly around the turn of the millennium, that something is happening. They kind of woke up. Something is happening.
Welcome to my podcast, Spiritual Quest, with me, your host, Vibeke Garnos, always guided by Spirit. I am very excited to share my gift with you and empower you to embrace your gift. So if you define yourself as a spiritual human being, then you've come to the right place. So prepare yourself now for an amazing journey where your soul will lead the way. Hello, and welcome to a high-frequency episode of the Spiritual Quest podcast. I'm so excited to introduce today's guest, and as I was exploring his journey and how he shows up in the world, I actually discovered new perspectives when it comes to my life path and my soul mission, which means we're speaking the universal language of light and love for humanity, Mother Earth, and all her beautiful creatures. And I'm really looking forward to seeing through the lens of another mission-driven and soul-led entrepreneur. Steve Nobel is an Ascension coach, founder of Soul Matrix Healing, and the author of 6 nonfiction books, where the 2 most recent are free ebooks entitled Starseeds and The Spiritual Entrepreneur. And he also runs online events, workshops, and retreats in the UK. Steve was a director of a nonprofit spiritual organization called Alternatives for 13 years. And he has created a library of free resources, including meditations and transmission to help Starseeds, which are freely available on his website and YouTube channel, where he supports 160,000 subscribers with his meditations and transmissions. I'm so excited. So Steve's mission is to support those who are going through the ascension or awakening process. In other words, helping people release fear and move into love, going from separation to unity consciousness. I'm so ready to connect with Steve on a soul level, and it's with joy in my heart that I welcome Steve Nobel to the Spiritual Quest podcast. Hey, and welcome, Steve.
Hello, Vibeke. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. And let's just dive in, shall we? Because I have so many questions for you. And
Okay.
I would love for you to share with the audience. Let's start by you sharing your story of reawakening, shall we? And how you ended up creating the Soul Matrix.
Well, yeah, I was born in London, and my family were not spiritual, not interested in anything like this. And as a kid, I was interested in superhero comics. This was and sci-fi. Wow, sci-fi, Doctor Who, all of this is amazing. And as a child, this is tolerated. And as a teenager, Star Trek was okay, but there were some things which were not okay. My family was starting to get like, yeah, okay, can you just be normal? Maybe.
Yeah.
This was the message: be normal. And I took that message on board. I was searching for a while as a teenager. I was macrobiotic, doing martial arts, yoga. When yoga was not popular, back in the time, now it's very popular, then it wasn't popular. It was weird, and I couldn't even tell my friends I'm doing yoga. They would think it's very strange. But I decided, you know what, this is not really working. After a few years, I'm searching, nothing's really happening. Okay, I'll be normal. So I went to work in the city of London. I got married at 21, and by the age of 25, 2 children. So I
Wow.
was set in this life. I was working in the financial city of London, and I didn't like it. I wasn't really happy there. But there's a mortgage and there's children and there's, but after maybe 7 or 8 years, I said to my now ex-wife, I can't do this. This is too hard for me. And I remember her answer, which was, "You have responsibilities," which was me get on with it and keep doing it. Then I hit a brick wall. I had a bit of a breakdown. I left. I had convalescent for a year. I went into another area of work, and then another 10 years of that. And really, so 20 years of conventional work, just trying to be normal. It was hard for me. And then my father died. We weren't particularly close, but his death triggered something. And in 1991, I had my first awakening. I started to find spiritual teachers. Very quickly, one pointed the way to another one, and a channel over there, and alternatives is over there. And I'm like, wow, this is really like, I didn't have the word for synchronicity, but this was the experience of synchronicity. There was one thing going to the other, to the other. And within 6 months, I found everything I needed for the next 20 years. It was just like this
Wow.
amazing. My then wife was not very happy with this. She's like not happy. She was Catholic and very, fixed in her views. Strong, well, she would say strong in her views, strong in her views. And I left the Catholic Church. She wasn't very happy. Eventually, we did separate because it was too hard. And I don't think she could even comprehend we are separating because of his spiritual ideas. It had to be something else. She was saying it has to be something else. But anyway, we separated. Now we're very good friends. Actually, we're grandparents, so it all kind of came circle and we healed it. But for a while, I was out in the wilderness. Her family didn't like me. My family were kind of blaming me, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm the bad sheep, the black sheep. And so I dived into a big journey of exploration. I went to this organization, Alternatives, became a volunteer. I eventually resigned from the corporate world, thinking I can't do this anymore. I just dived in shamanism, Wicca,
Oh.
metaphysics. I found a metaphysical teacher, very good. For 9 years, followed her, a channel in America, Orin and Darben. I liked Orin and Darben. I don't know if you've heard of them. I did Awakening the Light Body. I did all these things, but I had no idea what I was doing. I was just following one thing to the next. I didn't
Mm.
really know. And then I became a director of this organization, Alternatives. Somehow, Spirit, I didn't have a CV. I just was in the right place. And I was asked, would you like to be a director? I'm like, oh, okay. I had no real experience of running an organization. But so what I did is I meditated and asked Spirit, can you help me? Because I have no idea. And they did. I was getting all these downloads in the night, dreaming in the morning. Employ this person, do this. And slowly the organization started financially being better, and the morale of the organization, which was a bit difficult when I was became a director, was rising. And after 13 years of this journey and seeing many amazing teachers, I was people I really admired, and even having tea with them, I could have tea with them,
Mm.
like Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way. I really liked her. We had tea a lot. She liked English tea. And Neil Donald Walsh came over. People like Eckhart Tolle, I had tea with him two or three times. So Michael Beckwith, all these, and Byron Katie, all these really lovely people. Marion Williamson, and so getting to see them on stage and off stage, which was really interesting,
Mm.
and also how to blend spirituality with running a business. This was like, well,
Yes.
there's money and there's wages and there's websites and there's all of this and there's spirituality, and how do we manage it all? And so I learned how these things come together, and that was my apprenticeship, I think. And by 2010, I had another level of awakening, but this one was difficult. The first one was magical and hey,
Mm.
synchronicity. This one was not like that. This one was like darker and dark night of the soul,
Mm.
because basically what was happening, the soul or higher self or inner self, whatever we call, was saying leave and go on this journey. And my mind, conscious mind, was saying no, this is a family, this is the job I love, why vocation, why would I leave it? And this created such a tension in me that I went into a dark night of the soul. I had to resign from the job anyway because I couldn't cope with it because of this dark night. I was in a dark night of the soul for 6 years, very dark, very difficult. Uh, if you think of depression, this was like times 10. It was like loss of meaning, loss of everything really, loss of purpose, loss of who am I, what am I doing, and also I was being, I would say, psychically attacked, or now I would say psychically attacked by lower forces
Mm.
constantly, and had no defense against it. I was like having nightmares for about 18 months, every single night, being chased, killed, all of this. And I'm like, this is not normal. Anyway, I found some healers that helped. I began coming out. I began to regain a connection back to source, back to my intuition, reconnecting with higher self. And then one morning, when was it? I can't remember, 2016, I think. I woke up and the voice, I haven't heard the voice for a long time, not my voice, said to me, okay, now teach about Starseeds and Ascension. And
Wow.
I'm like, well, I know something about that, but I don't really know I really can teach it. But I sat and meditated for 2 weeks thinking, basically the voice was saying, you have to start sailing even further out than you have been for the last 20 years, because everything was for my personal development. Now Spirit says, get out and talk about it. And I'm like, I don't really feel comfortable, but resistance is not a good option. So I said, yes, okay, we'll do it. And in 2016, I ran my first workshop. I don't know. What do I know? Anyway, 30 people turned up. At the end of it, they're all ecstatic. And the organizer of the workshop said to me, you have to do more. They love it. They want more. And I was like, okay. And that started the journey. And so I'm what's it now? 7 years, maybe 6.5 years. Now I have a better idea of the journey. I've kind of had to learn quickly and ask Spirit, can you download, a bit like taking over the organizational alternatives? I don't know. Can you tell me? And then they would tell me. And now they said, start doing transmissions. I started doing transmissions. They said, start doing one-to-one sessions. I started. They said, start doing webinars. I started. So basically, I just said yes to it all.
Mm.
And now all of the dots, which I didn't make sense of, are connecting.
Mm.
I can understand lots of things, why that had to happen then. When I didn't understand it then, now I understand. So I trusted, which was a good thing, to trust and do it.
Wow.
So that's my journey, really.
I don't know if you could see it if you were watching me when you were speaking, but I got really emotional when you were talking about the dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
Listening to your story, Steve, it triggers something in me because it's very, and I'm not just saying, I know I've said it on the podcast prior when speaking to other spiritual teachers, but it really does resonate on a core level with me because it's very, very much the similar things that's happened with me, apart from being divorced. But having that dark night of the soul, spirit waking up when I wanted to surrender my life, I wanted to go home, and then having to hear the voice that suddenly spoke to me again that I hadn't heard since I was a child. And all these things that you're mentioning, I've just recently come out of that dark night of the soul. And
Oh.
I actually went on a TV show in Norway because I wanted to go away. So it was a reality show. So I actually went, it was placing you back 100 years back in time. So you would live off the land and you would harvest and do all this on the farm and just live in nature. And I did that to gain my sanity again, to figure out who I was because I was feeling drawn in so many ways. And I started to channel back in 20, when was it when Zario said that? That was in 2012, I think. And I started my groups and I've been dealing with my groups for since that time. And they're still with me, some of them. And I, like you did the alternative thing, the nonprofit. I was told to by spirit to create a nonprofit in 2017, and so I did. And I actually manifested the money. One day they said do it, and I said, well, I don't have that money because it cost like 100,000 to do it. And it took only 3 days before I get a phone call where somebody wanted to donate that money to me personally
Mm.
because I'd assisted somebody. And I said, is it okay if you, instead of giving it to me, I will set up this nonprofit, you can give it to them or to the nonprofit. And here was my nonprofit. And it was called Soul Energy in Motion. And it still exists, but it's on the where I had to make a decision because I lost myself. I was giving all of myself, and I thought this was my future when I did
Yeah.
this. And it was actually a way out from what I was doing, I kind of created everything that I've visioned for myself. And now I'm coming out of this and there's something more waiting. And I felt so guilty. I felt so ashamed dragging all these people along. I felt like a fraud. I felt I had so many low vibrational frequencies in me and I
Mm,
got attacked just
mm,
like you. And I
yeah,
didn't see that when I was down there until I started to work myself way back up. And I had so much shame thinking about all this, being in this line of work. Actually, the 8th of March was 15 years I've been a spiritual coach and doing my entrepreneurship. And it was like, I could never imagine that it would be kind of like a roller coaster the way it is. So when you're speaking of this and I'm listening to it, it's like everything is resurfacing so I can view it through another lens, through your lens, and see how powerful that journey truly is.
yeah.
So I just want to share this and be and thank you for that again. I'm allowing the guidance of spirit. That is why it's called Spiritual Quest, always guided by spirit. So when I saw you and I saw you on YouTube actually, I was like, I got to speak to this man. It was just
Yeah.
something like the dots, right? That you spoke of.
Right.
So I'm sorry, I just wanted to share that and I'm going to give you the word again. And
Thank
let's
you.
talk. Yeah, can we talk a little bit? How did you come to create a soul matrix? What came out of this?
Um, so when I started teaching this and doing the workshops, I was really, it'd been 6 years of a dark night. I didn't have any money, like, no money. And I needed to create a website and I needed to create a few different things. And I didn't really have the money for it. So my then girlfriend at the time said, we had a very wealthy mutual friend. And she said to me, go and ask this guy for money to do it. And
Mm,
I'm like, I can't just go and ask him for money to do this. I've never done that in my life. But then when I sat with it, I thought, oh, okay. I asked him, I said, okay, I have this idea. He asked me, tell me, give me the idea, tell me, write it. And I wrote it down. I sent it to him and he gave me the money. So I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Okay. So then I created the website, I created the thing. And then the first year or so was tricky financially, I must say. It wasn't easy. Money hasn't been easy for most of my life, even though I've worked in the city. It's been one of my lessons has been around money and abundance, I would say. Um, but then I had to face, I think, in those early years, every program around money or lack or scarcity. My family were full of scarcity programming,
yeah.
and I faced everything really. Even my worst fear would be to be homeless. And I went to a park in London and I found a nice place thinking if I'm homeless, I'll stay here. And it didn't manifest, but I had to face the fear and really feel it. And then it was like clearing out these old programs. And then the business started coming, money started coming in, more flowing in. Then I was getting all these transmissions, and one of the transmissions was about money and abundance. I remember used to live in a community full of Buddhists, actually. And of course, they have lots of money issues there. And I remember thinking, everyone has money issues. I'm having a money issue. What is it about money? And then I was standing in the kitchen and I had this voice coming in and saying to me, the issue with money is that money is not a pure energy. It carries a lot of vibrations from the collective consciousness, which is not good. And I was like, oh, yeah. And, anger and fear and anxiety, billions of people. That makes sense. So I was standing there going, then what's the answer? Because we need money, but if it's full of this difficult frequency, why would we have it? And the answer, this is why a lot of spiritual people reject money, because they feel the energy is not very high. So I was actually standing very close to this water filtering system, actually. And the voice said, you need water, and water is not totally pure, is it? And I was like, yeah,
Mm.
we filter water. And it was like, oh, yeah, we can filter the energy of money. So this was an early transmission, 5D abundance transmission, I think was the one, around how do I not only filter out these streams of money coming in, ways of filtering it out. But how do I increase those streams and also increase the filtering out process? And there was a whole more layers to it. And then money started getting easier and coming in. And I would say now I'm the most abundant I've been in my life, really. So,
Wow.
yeah, starting the whole thing was really around listening to spirit and following the guidance. Start doing transmissions. Okay, I started doing that. Start doing sessions. Okay, I started doing sessions. Webinars. Start do live events again. I had done them in the past. So now I'm doing them again, and they're just selling out. I'm putting them up, and they sell. I've got one in Ireland in the summer. It sold out before Christmas.
Wow.
Sold out.
Mm.
So I'm like, oh wow. So I do feel in spirit there are teams, angels, guides that know about business, money, and all these things. Actually, they know there's a lot of teams that know a lot about a lot of things. So all we need to do is say, that I want to write a book. Can there be some people who know about that, higher selves who know about that, and we connect with them. So money, running a business, if it's in our soul's destiny, spirit will assemble a team and connect you to it. If
Yes.
it's not, then you just won't get anything. Hey,
Yeah.
I want to go and be an astronaut. Then there'll be spirit going, no, nothing. There ain't no team up here for that. You know, for you anyway. Maybe somebody else, but not
Yeah.
for you. So as long as you're in line with guidance and what you're meant to be doing, there's a bit of leeway. I think spirit gives you certain leeway. So, for example, we may have lessons or challenges around creativity, and so there's a certain leeway we can explore, and or abundance. There's a certain leeway we can go around. There's an essence that spirit want us to follow, and the form of it can. There's a little leeway with the form, I think. So, so I found healing teams, ascension teams, angelic angelic karmic clearing teams, elemental rescue teams, star race teams. There's a lot of them up there. We're just gonna, and then you call them, and then you feel, oh yeah, there's a connection.
Mhm.
Okay, and then it comes down. There's downloads, there's information, and all this.
Well, may I ask you
And yeah,
something? When you download, do you feel it straight away, or do you get the awareness of that download straight away, or does it need to integrate through your actions or something?
sometimes they're drip, drip, drip. Right, like here's a bit, here's a bit, here's a bit. So some transmissions have taken months. I'm
Mm.
like, there's something. I make a few notes. I put it aside. It's not complete. Some of them I've had a few that have downloaded within several seconds, like zoom, and then I'm like, whoa, what is that? And I sit with it, and then it unpacks.
Mm.
So it's not the same. Although with the transmissions in the early days, I was just a passive receptor. Okay, tell me, I'll receive. But now I'm actually saying to them, hey, how about something on anger clearing?
Mm.
And then if there's a resonance back, then I know, okay, they want to do this. If there's nothing, hey, then this is not something to be interested in. So it's a two-way street now.
Yes.
I'll say to them, this transmission you've given me, it's not complete. Can you complete it, please? Can you speed it up? That kind of thing. I want to clone myself. I was saying to my partner today, if there was 3 or 4 of me, it'd be so much easier. I could get everything done. And she says that would be scary if there was 3 or 4 of you in the house. I said we just plug them in and put them in the wardrobe in the evenings. Don't worry.
I think that would be scary as well. I mean, that would be a lot of downloads going on at the same time. The ascension
Yeah,
process would like, woohoo!
yeah. We'd have to get 6 computers so they can all be working on them or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're talking a little bit about the ascension process now. Why don't you share what is the ascension process? Is it all about?
So before I would call it awakening,
Mm.
but now ascension. So awakening really is, hey, you're waking up from the sleepiness of this world. You're getting kind of a big higher consciousness. You're kind of seeing the world with new eyes. That metaphor of asleep or awake, that kind of thing. Ascension is slightly different. Ascension is the idea that there's a kind of cosmic calendar we're in, cosmic clock we're in, and the world has been asleep for a long time, and now the clock is where we've kind of hit midnight and just kind of passing midnight,
Mm.
and the planet itself is shifting. The idea is the planet itself is shifting. The planet itself is raising its own vibration. That
Yes.
the idea of the planet is consciousness, and that the planet is moving into a, I don't know if I call it photon belt. Some people call it this. There's an area of the universe where there's more possibility of light, and there's more possibility of help and support. And um, with this light on the planet, which is not just about me and my awakening, it's about a collective thing, the shadows of the world are coming out
Mm.
and are becoming more visible. And the shadows of the world, and those shadows, I would say, are forces which we can call many names: anti light, anti evolution. They're ultra conservative that want to keep the world the way it is, the way the things are. They don't like to change it. They don't like a higher vibration. Those forces are reacting because those forces have become aware, particularly around the millennium, turn of the millennium, that something is happening. They kind of woke up. Something is happening, and we need to stop it. And so my feeling is that they took action. They've been taking consistent action to stop it. 9/11 was the first major action, I think, to try and stop the ascension process.
Mm.
And the forces that pushed that agenda, and again, this is just my own feeling. It's
Mm-hmm.
not. I'm not saying that I'm going to present a whole dossier of documents on it, but there are plenty of people out there with lots of kind of stuff about the 9/11. But 9/11, on the one hand, was about seeking to control, seeking to limit, seeking to grab resources, seeking to create war. War is a vibrational. Always war will keep the vibration low because it's not going to raise people's vibration. Nobody goes into war going, hey, my vibration is high.
No,
Even
you're
if they
right.
do feel gun-ho for war, there's usually an
Yeah.
element of fear or what's going to happen. Maybe I'll get blown up or something. um, Keeping the energy of the world low is one aspect of that. It didn't work out very well because the consciousness of the planet is rising. And so 9/11 didn't produce anything. All of that stuff in the Middle East didn't do anything really. All petered out and filtered out, didn't produce anything of a dark kind anyway. And then wind the clock forward, there's been a few other attempts, but the latest one, I would say, the agenda that's been pushed on the planet recently, global lockdown and all of that stuff, to
Mm.
me is an agenda that's been deliberately manufactured to keep the vibration of the planet low, but not only to do that, but to try and control humanity in a way that hasn't been possible before.
Mm.
So the shadows are coming out and the light is, so we're in this biblical Armageddon. I'm not Armageddon, the end of the world, but Armageddon in the terms of light and dark forces together,
Mm.
intensifying. The light is getting more intense, and as the light gets more intense, there's an equal reaction against it. But the light is ascending, which means that the forces which have controlled this world for a long, long time, really, we haven't been a planet of light, really. If you read the history
Yeah.
last 10,000 years, you can't say it's been a planet of light, really. Any spiritual teacher that's come in has had a hard time.
Mm.
The avatar of the West, Jesus the Christ, had not had an easy ride coming in. He was, every turn there was attempts to block. And even the emerging religion was blocked by the Roman Empire. And even when it was taken over, it was not taken over in a happy, positive way. Christianity did not turn out a happy, beautiful, spreading love vibes across the planet, even if that's what they say. It produced something else. So the light is ascending. The dark forces are in the descent. You could
Mm.
say descending. So, but a lot of spiritual people are still with this belief that the dark is stronger than the light. And the reason for that is for thousands of years, they've experienced lifetimes on this planet where the dark has been in control. And so now this is a core belief we have to break, that the dark is no longer stronger than the light. Actually, light workers who are also often afraid to be too visible because of, in some other lifetime, being burned or killed or whatever. It's very common, actually. In my own experience,
One
I
here.
remember being burnt,
Yeah.
in France, actually, northern France.
I was actually
And
one decapitated my head in France.
Oh, maybe
Yes.
we knew each other.
Yeah.
Which is a bit why I've always worried. Not I like the south of France. North of France, I always found a little bit challenging.
Yes.
So these kind of lifetimes of being exiled or persecuted or humiliated or killed, and of course our unconscious mind is going, we don't want to step out, but it's common that when people start stepping out of the spiritual closet, there's always a kind of ego. I'm not sure. Are you sure you want to do this? Don't you remember those 10 lifetimes? All of this kind of stuff. So this is for light workers or star seeds. There's this kind of initial, hey, I'm waking up. Hey, but is it safe? Is it safe? Is a core question because it hasn't been safe for a long time.
Mm.
So I see lots of clients, and the core thing of I'm not really feeling safe about this coming too far out of the closet, and that's something most of us have to face. Really,
Yes,
it's a common thing.
I actually recognize everything you said because what one of those things I've decided to be very open. I've always felt that that was part of my mission to shine a light onto those resources that many of us carry, and I feel like I have that. I've had a lot of masculine energy, so I'm not really afraid. I can stand up for myself, and I'm a really go getter and get things done. And so I actually, when I started to allow myself to be guided by spirit, when I made that decision, because it was, like you said, an awakening, and I decided to listen. I said, okay, you get me. This is a long time ago. And I said, you get me on that TV show where there's like a TV show where you if you have any gifts, you go in there and you have to deal with the tasks that they give you, and it's kind of like a competition. I wasn't into that competition part, but I said, okay, if you really mean, if you're telling me that I have something, a gift that's natural in me, because I've never taken a course, never read a book, if there's anything in me, and because I've seen these spirits around me since I was a child, okay, I'll do that, but only if you get me on that TV show so I can trust in myself and my abilities. And of course, I got on the show. And
Yeah,
so I was the first one out of that TV show. And when I asked them, I was like, hey, that was a quick. And they said, well, that wasn't the deal. You said get you on. And then now you've been there. Now you said you accept yourself and your gift. Now it's up to you. And I said, okay, I
yeah,
promised you that I would listen and trust in my abilities, and I will keep doing that. And that, of course, ended up being several TV shows. And when I then did my last one, I went into the dark night of the soul. Of course, I got death threats, written letters in my email
mm,
or in my
right.
box, what do you call it? I don't even know what you call it now because it's,
Inbox.
yes, well, not in my inbox, in my actual physical mailbox. There you go.
Oh, mailbox. Your
Yeah,
mailbox. Oh,
see? I don't even,
oh, right.
yeah. And so that is kind of, it kind of resonates with everything that you're saying, that, okay, I have to really trust in the power and the light, and just trust in my power. That's it. Trust in my power. And that is the reason why they said start spiritual quest, because it was a quest for me to find my organic, authentic voice again, but not the same way voice, because I already had an awakening. It's now, like you're saying, I have to be more visible, but another way. And even though I've been trying to be visible, I've been afraid, because I was afraid of everything that would be backlashed towards me. And
Yeah,
so I've been holding myself back in a lot of ways. And it drove me back down to the dark night of the soul until I said, I want to say a bad word now, but it's not what I'm like, and then here we go again. I used that masculine energy again, and I said, hey, I'm going. And I started, and I haven't been looking back. But again, I understand what you're saying. And that's how I now recognize that I fit the label, because everybody asks me when I've been interviewed, what do you call yourself? And I'm like, I don't have a label. I didn't know about starseeds. I didn't know about clairvoyant, or what do you want to call me? I'm just me. I have no clue what you want to call me. Okay, so I have some abilities, you might, but I don't even know what those are, because they change and they evolve and they expand and I have no clue.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just trying to be me. And that's why I think what you're doing is such a powerful thing,
Thank you.
helping people open up to the star seeds. So that brings us into star seeds. Would you please
Starseeds.
share? Yes. Would you please share a little bit about that? What are star seeds and why are they here?
Yeah, well, in the beginning of that story, when the voice said talk about starseeds, I'd heard about them. I'd come across a couple of books about them, and I thought this is a quaint idea. Who knows? Who knows? I even met the channel of the Ra material, who's talked a lot about starseeds. There's a lot of books called the Ra material, and an interesting. I can't remember 6 or 7 books. Lovely person, I met her, but hey, I don't know. And so when I was told talk about starseeds, I'm like, well, I don't know about them, but I had to sit with it and work out. I didn't even believe in 2012 trigger point. I thought this is a quaint idea, but when I looked at it, the whole 2012 thing, the leading up to it, something happened to me. And so afterwards, there was some big shift. And so I started looking and meditating on star seeds. And it started just to kind of come in that this is who you are, who I am. And I'm like, what is it then? Okay, basically, the idea is that there are souls that are in bodies on the planet that are not native to the planet. Um, And I'm like, where are they from? They're from all different star systems. Where? Well, the ones which I feel the strongest resonance with, I had some kind of connection. I mean, there's many, many systems. I feel very strongly to Sirius, the dog star of goddess Isis. I felt a strong connection to Orion, which is a bit mixed as a system. Actually, the Star Wars films apparently are connected to that system. I felt a strong connection to Arcturus and Pleiades and Lyra.
Hmm.
But I'm like, well, I feel this, but what I've come to realize now is, well, in the work I've done, I've got a lot of connections with Syrian archangels, Syrian guides, Syrian beings, Arcturian beings, Lyran to some extent, but they're still a little bit distant. They're like kind of a bit further away from me. And there are lots of the angelic realm. So I have these kind of connections. But what I've realized is that star seeds are wanderer souls. And I think in the Ra material, he even mentions this about starseeds. Starseeds are wanderer souls. And when I thought, well, what does it mean, a wanderer soul? It means that you've been in many dimensions, many planetary systems, apart from the Earth plane. It's like visiting and being incarnated in these different systems. Some of those systems you may have many incarnations in, and some a few, and some none. And so we will have a primary connection to certain systems and a distant to other systems. So people often ask me, am I a starseed? And I say, if you're following people like me, or probably someone like you, Rebecca, you are, because I'm too weird
Yeah.
for non-starseeds. Too weird.
Yeah.
In all of the workshops I've ever run, only one person I realized was not a starseed, and basically his sister had been through a vulnerable time, and he came along to protect the sister. And he's saying, "Yeah, I think I'm a starseed," but his energy clearly was not one. And it's hard to know. I think you can tell in terms of their interest, what draws them, but also their energy. If you after a while of working enough with them, you can sit with someone and you get a feel of,
Hmm.
like I lived with a community of Buddhists, and none of them were starseeds. They're
Mm.
all interested in spirituality, but none of them were starseeds. One of them even asked me, "Hey, what's the starseed stuff, Steve?" And I'm like, I tuned in. He's not one, and I thought. I lent him a book and I said, "This is what it's all about." And I kind of knew what would happen. He came back, and he said, "It's all mad. The book is all mad, isn't it?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yes, it's all mad, but it's all true, I
Yeah.
think." And he was like scratching his head. And so now I realize the kind of the saying in the Bible, "Do not cast pearls before swine." I don't speak of it to people that I think would just not comprehend it.
Yeah.
There's no point. If I go and speak to my daughter, sometimes says to me, she's interested in what I'm up to. She said, "Dad, what's an ascension coach? What's an ascension guide?" And I could not ever explain it to her. So I just say it's weird shit.
I like
And she laughs.
that. Yes.
Or she says to me, "Dad, what are you up to today?" I say, "I'm up to no good."
Yeah.
And she laughs. And so at that level, we can have fun.
Yeah.
But if I sat down and explained it to her, I think she'd be worried about my
Yeah.
sanity, really.
Yeah.
we can talk about mediums. She's into mediums. We can talk a little bit even about tarot, but I can't go anywhere where I'm going. It's
Yeah.
just,
I
and
have
even the
actually,
organization. Yeah,
yeah,
go on.
I have two girls, and my youngest is a starseed,
Yeah.
and she knows intuitively. I mean, I've had so many experiences with her. The first thing that she saw, the first word she said when she was a young girl, it was like colors, and she would point. She would point at people and she would say their colors. So I knew, okay, she's got the same thing. And she would speak to her spirit guide, and I would hear her play in the room, and she would play. And I said, why are you laughing? Oh, they're tickling me. I said, who's tickling you? Oh, don't you see the orbs? And she would play with the orbs and all that, and they would protect her. And the angel, I remember one time the angel came. She was really scared. She had paralyzed, fear, terror, and they would come and surround her, and she was so proud. The next day she told me, I was so scared, and I walked into my older sister's room with the angels around me, and she was just a small girl when she did that. And she would sit on my lap and give me healing when I was tired and drained, and she wouldn't say anything. She would just climb onto my lap, and she would jump down and say, done. Done. I was like, okay. And I would be, oh, okay, done. It's like, oh. So this is done. But she now is 15. And
Right.
we've had some really visitors coming to our house the last couple of months. And the last one was in October. And there was this reptilian energy that actually was in her room. And comes down, she goes, do you know there's a reptilian in my bedroom? I was like, if people hear us now, they would think we're mad. They would put me behind bars. Be quiet. It's like we have to be careful what we say. No, but she's
I
like,
know.
okay, mommy, we're pretty crazy. And I go, yeah, we're pretty crazy.
Well, my stepson, well, I'm not with his mother anymore. We were together for 12 years. And when he was very young, he's a starseed for sure. He had earache, very, very bad earache. And it went on for a couple of nights. And so one night I just said to him, okay, let's do a process. And I said, I want you to imagine what is the energy? What is the color of this egg? I want you to imagine lots of little energies coming in and pulling it out. We did a whole process. The earache went quickly,
Wow. Mm.
never came back. But then he was about 6, and he was invited to a birthday party. And when he's jumping places where people climb and they jump around, and one of his friends fell over and banged his knee, a 6-year-old kid. And Ian, his name's Ian,
Yeah.
went up to him. He said, it's okay, breathe, just tune in. What is the color of it? And the mothers were looking, said, what is he doing? And we were like, oh, it's just a game he's playing. Don't worry about it. We didn't want them to freak out. So I know the situation. And he's now 25. And him and some other Starseed friends, none of them studied. They all played video games and they all passed their exams. And like, how do they do that? They just download. I
Mm.
couldn't do it as a kid. I had to study. I
Me
wasn't
too.
switched on, But these kids, some of them can just go, they just do it. And they go, I passed. How? I mean, me and his mother were saying, how did he do it? We said, we don't know.
Wow.
Now he's in the corporate world doing, what's it, wind farm, working in wind farm or
Wow.
something like that.
Yeah.
He's manifesting, but he said, at the age of 8, he said, I'm an atheist. And we said, that's really good. He's rebelling against us because we were both spiritual. He had to rebel. We said, great. And I don't know what he is now, but he's manifesting his path pretty coolly. So,
Mm.
and
Mm.
some of these kids won't say they're starseeds. Of course, it's not cool to say I'm a starseed. Some of these kids are ultra talented. They're coming in with their talent switched on, and
Yes.
they don't mind. They can embrace that identification. Some kids they don't want to go that way. They don't think it's important. But you
Mm.
can tell by the resources. You said about being resourceful, igniting these resources. And this is what when starseeds who are adults wake up, the journey begins to activate their resources, which is
Yes.
multidimensional.
Yeah.
And they'll go, I can't, they may think I can't do something, but then they find they can do it. When I was working in the city, and if my future self had come to me and said, Steve, you'll be writing books, you'll be doing coaching, you'll be doing podcasting, there will be no idea of podcasting. You'll be on YouTube, there's no internet, no YouTube, and they'll be telling me these things, and I'd say, you are crazy.
Mm.
I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just shuffling papers in the city, moving a paper here to there, and that's all I thought I was good for. But it wakes up our potential, our capabilities. So, like now, I have an idea. Like I go to cafes, I sit there, I have an idea. I go, that's a great idea. I have no idea how that will work out in the form of it. But if I create the event, by the time it gets there, I'll know. A
You're
bit like
right.
the Matrix, it will
Ooh,
download.
I like you that you said that because a lot of people are like stuck in, okay, how do I manifest? I mean,
Yeah.
you're actually talking about the real power of manifestation. Do not, try to control the outcome of it. You get the idea, you start moving on that idea with a pure intention, things will start to unfold.
Yeah, you'll be told how to do
Yeah.
it. So I was in a cafe 3 years ago and I had the idea, channel your book. I went, channel your book. That's a great idea. How do you do that? No answer. Okay, let's create an event. By the time I gave myself 4 months, or I think 4 or 5 months, by the time I get there, I'll know. I've been running that event maybe 7 or 8 times now, and now I know how to do it. But
Yeah.
it's like it's the what do you want to create versus the how. The
Yeah.
mind asks how. The higher self says this is where you're going, and the mind wants to know how. But
Yeah.
if the mind could just relax and go, we trust that we will know by the time we get there. Each step will be revealed. I've put one up, channel your higher self. I've never taught channel your higher self. I don't know how to teach it, but I know when I get there, I'll know.
You're right.
So, yeah.
It's so incredible to listen to you because that's exactly the way I did it when I channeled my book. I was told to gather a group that I would be channeling for them. Um, they would call them torchbearers. And so I just sent it out. Okay, you want me to do this? I'll do this because I promised, right? And so I sent out to some people and they responded, and everyone except the one I thought, I already had an inkling that wouldn't accept the invitation. Everyone accepted except for him. But anyway, we started to channel and they said, you're going to channel for a year from 2012 to 2013. And whatever we give you, you're going to put in a book. It's going to be verbatim. And so I did. I had no clue how to, do a book or write a book or channel a book or whatever, but they would ask me questions and I would be in trance and I would allow the guidance of a spirit to come forward and I would answer their questions. And it became the book that you see behind me, Awaken to the Power of the Universe, and the Norwegian Nøkkelen til Lyset, which is Key to the Light. And I was like, okay, so this was back in 2014 is when I actually went to the States to hold a conference. And that's when I met this person who would help me self publish it. And so I self published it in 14 days because it was all done.
Right.
And that's how you do it. I mean, I did not try to control how am I going to figure this out. Did not think about it. I just said, okay, I'll whatever. And we recorded everything. And I got help from people to write out because people were, like to write down what was giving of information to them,
Yeah.
the answers to their questions. And they would send it in to me. And before I knew it, I had like a whole bunch of channeling sessions all written down, ready to go.
Yeah. It happens that way. There's a story. My ex-partner, she went to Slovenia. She's from Italy, but she went to Slovenia for kayaking. Now, this is brilliant because if I'd have told her, she'd have punched me on the nose. So I could never tell her what she was told. She was kayaking, and the instructor came up to her and said, "Why are you fighting the river?" And she said, "I'm not fighting the river." He said, "You are fighting the river. You have to trust the flow of the river." And then she kind of got it that she was kind of not feeling the flow of the river. She was trying to control the river, and it was creating, she wasn't really flowing. She came back and told me the story. I thought this was so brilliant that somebody else could tell her this story because I
Yes.
could never tell her. But I've used the story. It's a great metaphor. The river knows where it's going,
Yes.
but the mind wants to control the journey and
Yes.
won't trust the flow. Which flow? There is no flow. I don't see a flow, but then you feel the flow, and then you can
Yes.
feel the boat knows the flow. And so we grow up in an education system which teaches us to analyze, to be strategic, to be logical, and we don't trust, we don't feel. We're also disconnected from our body. The more we're disconnected from our body and our feelings, like the Star Wars, trust your feelings, which is the force.
Yeah.
If you're disconnected from your body and your feelings, you're disconnected from your higher self,
Mm.
because most people think it's all voices, but actually the higher self initially comes in through the body and through impulses and through feelings and through eventually signs and other things. It doesn't come in straight into the mind, because the mind is usually the most further away from the higher self, the most controlling bit. And so this is why I think women are having an easier time now with the whole new age evolution going on, because they're more in touch with their bodies because of their biology, and they're more in touch with their feelings, whereas men are more in touch with their intellect because they're trained
Mm.
to be that way. And so my audience are 85% women, 15% men, because men, unless they have a connection to their body and feeling and their more feminine right brain, they will struggle. They'll go, I
Mm.
don't get this stuff, I don't feel it, I don't understand it, it doesn't
Mm.
make sense, it's not logical what you're saying. So women feel it,
Yes.
mostly, or men with a feminine side will feel it. So yeah, that's the thing. uh, and a lot of brilliant people out there, and I've met a lot of priests, and they're all trained in this left brain logic. Priests who are meant to be the mediator between you and God are in their heads. They're stuck in their heads. They don't know.
Mm.
That's why they can't really help you,
Mm.
really.
Yeah.
And that's why religion is in a lot of difficulty, because it's lost the poetry, it's lost the dance, it's lost the true meaning of ritual, it's lost the true meaning of the inner self. It's all about external power, giving the power
Yes.
to a priest, a male god with a long beard, and all of this stuff. It's banished the goddess a long time ago. This is a problem with all religions. The goddess was banished, and so the feminine side was banished. It's all about domination and left brain logic and producing and achieving and all of that.
Mm.
And that is changing now. And this is the struggle. Um, the struggle for women, I think, they're ahead of men, of course, in their feeling and their body. The struggle for women is they have great intuition, great imagination, but putting it into the world to be successful can be a struggle. They need the masculine energy to do that. Whereas men who are disconnected from the feminine, I mean, this is very generalizations. I know there's
Yeah,
all
I
kinds
know.
of, women have strong feminine, men have strong. Um, uh, it's a lot of different mixtures here. But men who are disconnected from their feelings and their body and their feminine side are struggling around. This is what I was told to do to be successful. And why is it not working out? In the city of London, it was the most secure job in the world. No one, if you wanted to be secure and money, go in the city. They're all being made redundant now because the jobs are being farmed out, a lot of them to India,
Yes.
and now me in my weird business is more secure than them in the city, which to the logical mind doesn't make sense. How can you be more successful now than them? This is why we went in the city. People who've been there 20, 30 years are, what do I do? They're confused because the
Mm.
world is changing and the left brain doesn't know how to maneuver with those changes, really.
So, how do you have any idea or perceptions of when we will be able to really embrace that fullness, the wholeness of us, like the left brain, right brain, come together,
It's
unity?
it's the work of many, many of us. Uh, and yes, it does. I think for some people that have one dominant side and the other is weaker, and the journey is to embrace the weaker side. So I've got a friend who worked in the city, very, very masculine, very, very macho. He had a near-death experience, a walk-in. The idea of a walk-in, the
Mm.
transit souls change. If you know him now, you would go, "Oh my God." He sits around playing his guitar all day long, writing poems. This has been going on for like 8 years, and I'm
Wow.
like, seriously, you've done the feminine enough. Can you please start balancing? And he's going, "No, no, I'm pretty enjoying myself here." He's not going to do it. For some people, they have a strong masculine and a strong feminine, but they're divorced parents. They're acting like divorced parents. Either I'm in my strong masculine mode or I'm in my strong feminine mode. It's one or the other. They're not working together. They're working against each other because the feminine's been used to being dominated and doesn't want to be dominated. It's going to fight against the masculine. Go, I'm not gonna. I'm an independent. Don't tell me what to do. And the masculine's going, well, That's how I support. So there's all this kind of weird dance going on. What I did is I embraced feminine based spirituality for the last 20 years, Wicca, shamanism. They're very more feminine embracing. And that has helped to rebalance something in me. And then I got to a point where, I've done enough of that. I need to leave and find now I've built up the feminine in me. Now I need to know how the masculine can work with the feminine because it wasn't working together. They were
Yeah.
separate beings still. So now this has
You're
been my
talking
journey the
to
last.
me.
You're the Viking. Go out and conquer. You know. Yeah, the journey then is once you've built them up to equal strength, the bridge has to be made.
Mm.
Bridge, like in the brain, the bridge, and in the heart, the bridge, and in
Bridge.
the gut, the bridge. So that all parts of our body are working together. There's no part going, I ain't doing that. I'm not gonna. I ain't gonna be told what to do. We all carry these parts of our ego which are rebellious or sabotaging. We have to find them, shine a light on them, go, hey guys, I want you to work with me. That's not helping me. And this is very, very common. The ego will fight as well. It doesn't like the process.
No, I
Yeah.
know. That's why I had to have the last dip into Dark Night of the Soul.
The
But
ego
I,
doesn't like that either.
no, no, no. But at least I've found, I know I'm working on that balancing act, if you wish. But I really do. I'm such in a great place. Like I told my husband yesterday, I walked into the house and I was smiling from ear to ear, and he goes, "What happened?" I was like, "Life happened." I'm just happy. I'm just joyful. I'm so grateful that I get to do my work and I get to support other star seeds or other people, heart-centered people who want this for themselves. They want that high frequency. They want to feel and become one of, let go of fear and move into love and to embrace the unity consciousness. And my spiritual team call it the dimension of unity. It's in my book when I
Yeah.
channeled. So for me, it's always when I connect to people, it's like, oh, I'm so excited because when I feel that heart vibration when I speak to you, I know that I'm in the unity consciousness. I'm anchored within the dimension of unity, as they say to me. And it's just, okay, I can be myself. I'm not afraid to share that, any aspects of my beingness, because that's the journey I'm on. If I can't share it and be vulnerable, then why am I here? We need to support each other and
Yeah.
allow our strength, our power will shine a light on our journeys if we allow it. And so I'm just
Yeah.
on this path to embrace it. But I have one final question before we wrap up. Do you have time,
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
so
Sure.
I read on your website, it said, let me find it, I did write it down. Yes, DNA activation. Would you please elaborate on that? What does it mean and what does it entail?
DNA activation. Well, I'm not a scientist, so I'll talk from a non-scientific view, from what I understand. The DNA of the original human template was much more than two strands, and many, many of these connections between, some say 12 strands, a 12-stranded DNA. And in the DNA, the scientists say there's a lot of junk DNA, meaning material that has no obvious use. And I think I heard someone describe this as, imagine a library full of books, and somebody goes in there and throws 90% of the books in a pile on the floor and mixes it all up. It makes no sense what it is. The two strands left. So it's basically at a certain point of our evolution, there was an unplugging, which means that humanity decided to explore lower frequencies, to explore density. And the way we explored density was unplugging the DNA.
Mm.
And maybe not only unplugging it, but having it interfered with. That's a whole nother subject. From lower forces, lower, darker ET forces.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I ask you a question? Because you're triggering an old memory of a
Yeah.
channeling. I remember I did a channeling when I didn't know this had anything to do with it, but they showed me how they would collect, they would go into the bodies of people sleeping. Like there was other entities out in the, I don't know what kind of entities they were, but they would come, they would collect samples and they would, it looked like they would extract them and put it in a mailbox. It looked like it was like and there was like strings of these where they would keep them secure, so they would remove it from their energetic body. And it kind of that triggered it, the image that you, now that you just said that, can that have, when I'm triggered like this, are we talking about DNA activation? Like they would remove the strings?
Um, at the moment, there are a number of experiments going. There are a number of races that are very curious about human DNA, and
Yes.
they're observing it and watching
Yes.
it. So there may be. I
Like
heard something like
samples.
22
Yeah.
samples of it,
Yeah.
just checking, like a scientist would
Yes.
check.
Yeah, like you
How's
take.
the thing doing? Yeah, how's it
Yeah.
doing?
Okay.
So it
Interesting.
may not be the direct activation, but it may be the more observation of it. But there was a direct tampering where there was an unplugging, and this was to keep humanity in a more controlled state for thousands of years, really.
Mm.
There are people who talk about this, that the darker ET
Yes.
races have been involved with humanity and have controlled humanity for a while. Now, in the ascension process, there's an awakening. The awakening happens through two things: the DNA and the chakra system, which are very interlinked, start to activate.
Mm.
So humanity is activated primarily up to the solar plexus. They're aware from base to solar plexus, the three lower chakras: survival, sexuality, power. This has been the main. There has been some heart. I'm not saying there's been no heart. Of course, there is a heart energy, but it's not been really the dominant one in the human collective, although some individuals certainly can carry this energy. With the activation, the heart is there's a heart awakening, but not just a heart awakening. The throat is awakening. So the heart waking up, but we're going from the fourth density to the fifth, which is the throat.
Mm-hmm.
The throat is a major activation now. A lot of people are having problems in the throat because it's carried so many issues, persecution issues, being killed. You can't speak that. You have to hide that. You can't be your true self. To the throat's been zonked like this. So the throat is being activated. So we're being activated for the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, and higher. There are higher. There are some say. I mean, I'm focusing on 12 chakras, but there may well be many, many more.
Mm,
Probably
interesting.
are
Me
many
too.
more.
12.
Yeah.
That's,
I,
I don't
I
know.
focus on 12. That's enough for me
Yeah.
to focus on
Yeah,
that.
me too.
If we focus on the 12, then the rest will eventually, that won't be a problem. Clearing out stuff, third eye stuff, throat, really a major issue is the throat. Sacral is a lot of gunk in the sacral. Religious programming, a lot old celibacy vows, poverty, all of this kind of stuff. Clearing all of that out. So as the DNA activates, and the DNA can activate through channeling, through light codes, through meditations, through transmissions, through dreams. It just starts. We're in the by being in the vicinity of high vibration, it starts to activate. And then the chakra systems are activating together. And then as the chakra system starts activating, the aura starts activating. So
Mm.
the aura starts getting bigger and more expansive, which can create a problem because people start having issues with boundaries. Their energy is getting too big, and then narcissists can spot them and go, "Hey, I feel that. I can feel you. Let's come over and give you a few lessons in love and boundaries." And that's why a lot of empathic starseeds have problems with narcissists, because they'll come in, they sense this expansive boundary. Hey, this person just wants to give and give and give, and I'll take and take and take. And so this is one of the lessons. And unless the lesson of boundaries comes in, because boundaries, you can be expansive and light and high frequency, you need to have boundaries. You need to be aware that not everyone around you is gonna love you and just reciprocate. There are. I mean, I don't know, Rebecca, if you've come across narcissists. I've come across two very intimately. One was a boss in the corporate world, and one was a romantic partner, and both of them provoked a great surge in my growth, but it was very painful.
Mm.
Yeah, we
I
can
know.
grow through narcissists. They will kick us about. They say, "You want to learn? Let's kick you again." That's the growth through hard knocks. And so, but it's okay. We can learn through hard knocks, and sometimes we need to learn through a few slaps. It's fine.
True.
And then when you learn the lesson, the narcissist goes, and you have to lick your wounds and heal yourself and learn boundaries and self-love and valuing your time and energy. So yeah, the DNA activation is connected to chakra system and aura system,
Mm.
and boundaries is very important, because as we activate, we don't want to call in narcissists, which
Mm.
will again activate more
Yeah,
stuff.
you're right.
Uh,
Wow, what an incredible conversation, Steve. I could talk to you for hours, but let's wrap it up with one final question. Any suggestions, advice for people listening all over the world on how to embrace their own ascension process?
Very, very simply, uh, make sure your vibe stays high. Do whatever you need to do to keep your high vibe. Dance, sing, hang out with lovely friends. Anything that brings your vibe down is a sign, you know what? They're lovely people, but I'm not vibing. Or a group that you're not vibing with. Maybe they were great for a while and this can happen. Hey, this group was fabulous and now I'm not vibing. Leave. Your soul is telling you the vibe is coming down. Don't have anything pull your energy down. Look around your house. Look at every object in it. If you don't love it or at least feel neutral about it, get rid of it. Keep your energy high. Look at your diet. Notice your diet. What foods bring your vibration up? And what brings it down. Check out alcohol. Hey, does alcohol bring me up? You can have an excited rush, but there may be a downer afterwards. Some drugs may be up and then a down. You want to be noticing what brings your energy up. And it may be, for example, some people microdose, and I think microdosing in certain things can bring your energy up. So there is no law and no fast rules about this. People, situations, foods, places, occupation, job is an interest. Actually, I'm just publishing this one, which is called Joy at Work.
Ooh,
This is
the other
coming
way.
out
There you go.
in there we are, coming out in April. This is for I've not written it for Starseeds. I've written it for regular people who want to go, you know what, this job is not vibing with me. I need to leave. And it's just around how do you get the courage and all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of practical exercises in that. So work, you may be not vibing with your job because your soul is saying you need to start your own business. A lot of Starseeds are entrepreneurs, as you know.
Yes.
And so follow the vibe. If it brings you down, really question it. If it brings you up, do more of it.
Yes. 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 I'm
Simple
so
question.
agreeing
Simple.
with you. Yeah,
Good.
but that's the thing. It's so simple, but still so valuable. And we need to be reminded of it because there's
Yeah.
so much energy out there and it's so easy to get
It's
distracted.
not complex. Make it simple. It's very simple.
Yes, please. Oh, I love hearing that. Simple, simple, simple. Do not make it hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. It's been absolutely a pleasure and honor to have you here on the Spiritual Quest podcast. And for you who's watching or listening, if you want to learn more about Steve and his wonderful work and his books, I'll make sure that all the information is in the episode description. So just check that out. And also, if you want to join me and my guests live, you can do that now. Each month, I go live with a previous guest, and that guest teach on their topic. So make sure you go and sign up for the Spiritual Quest newsflash, and you'll get notified when we go live. Well, thank you again, Steve. It's been a pleasure. And
Thank you.
sending
No problem.
everyone, love and light from Steve and I, always guided by spirit. Bye now.